Welcome to the You're Not Crazy podcast, hosted by Jessica Knight, a certified life coach who specializes in healing from narcissistic and emotional abuse. This podcast is intended to help you identify manipulative and abusive behavior, set boundaries with yourself and others, and heal the relationship with yourself so you can learn to love in a healthy way. You can connect with Jessica and find additional resources, content, and coaching at emotionalabusecoach.com.
I realized that this weekend, I'm in that moment that we all have in family court when we feel like we're in a cycle that doesn't end. And there's days that I certainly feel like I'm doing quote unquote everything right, where I'm on top of it, where my brain and my body and everything feels like it's actually working together. I feel solid. I feel like I have a great relationship with my daughter. And then there's these days where I just feel like nothing changes. And then I wonder, is it ever going to get better? And when the court doesn't see it, when the school doesn't see it, when her dad doesn't see it, it just keeps coming. And it just feels like sometimes those accusations, the false narratives, and the endless attempts to take me down, even when I am doing all the work to take care of my daughter, it makes me tired. It is like this kind of exhaustion that happens when you've been living through this for far too long and you just believe this is maybe your life now. And I know a lot of my clients think that. It's just this never ending loop of a defense, of a reaction, of survival, of having to be on. And you start to wonder, will this ever end? At what age will my child be when this ends? And I'm of the belief that your children may age out of the system at one point, but you don't age out of parenting them, and you'll always be their parent. And so it's not going to stop one day. I'll always be her mom. And I think that the stuck can look different for all of us. Stuck to me looks like when you're doing everything for your child, but every effort, everything you do, every care that you have gets twisted. Like every doctor appointment you bring your daughter to or your son to turns into, well, you did that because you want to restrict my parenting time. The child has tested positive for strep. That's why, it stuck can feel like trying to protect your peace, but it keeps being reframed as conflict. You're holding boundaries, but then they try and think that it's control, or they try and make you feel like it's control. But you work harder than you have ever had just to try and stay sane. And somehow you're still the one who is always being blamed by somebody. And before I ever knew what post-separation abuse was, I just thought this was just all horrible. When I learned about post-separation abuse, I was like, oh, there's a name for it. There's a name for the control that's going on right now, the control that doesn't actually make any factual sense. It's about somebody who can't stand that you don't want to be anywhere near them, and you don't think that they're a safe person mentally or physically. And so that person uses these systems that they're still connected to you. Parenting apps, emails, schools, courts, doctor appointments, to keep control of you and to almost like puff up their chest. And when you're in it, there's probably more days than less when it feels endless, and you start to lose hope that every win, quote unquote win, is followed by another attack in some way. And so when we start to feel like we're hitting progress, or we start to feel like, oh, I can breathe, or I found a system, or these boundaries are working, it gets undermined. And I think that a lot of times on this podcast, I talk about strategy around these things, because my goal, and that is my work as a coach, is to help you strategize so these things don't take over your life, and like that you can really keep yourself clear. And I know that this podcast might sound very doom and gloom, but my purpose is so that it speaks to the times when we feel really stuck. If you feel stuck and unseen, or like nothing will ever change, you are absolutely not a failure. You are just surviving a system that is not designed to understand you. And you really are not the problem for wanting peace and for wanting things just to feel quote unquote normal. I know sometimes lawyers will say, well, why do you expect it to be any different? And well, if we expected it just to stay the same, then we would lose hope. And what we're dealing with, and what I kind of want to shine the light on a little bit, is that this is coercive control. So it's not just that the other person's an asshole. They're an asshole, and this is coercive control. It's not yelling. It's not threats right now, or it can be. Actually, a lot of the time, usually it's legal threats, but there is such a strategic undermining of your parenting. Using your child as the messenger. That one drives me nuts. Performing, every ounce of calmness or reasonableness in writing most of the time. Caring more about perception, which I think drives the protective parent crazy, because it's like the perception doesn't matter. The child on the other side does. The child matters. They often insist that you are working together or that you're working against them, even if they're not working with you at all. It's just chaos. And if you realize that chaos really only goes one way, they always will want flexibility on their end. But the second you ask for anything, which is usually and always because your child is asking for it, like, hey, can I show up 15 minutes later at the drop off so Sally can finish her science fair project at school with her friend, turns into, you are taking away my parenting time. And it's because it is designed to wear you down. And I think that we all fall into this place where we start to question our reality, and we start apologizing for things that we didn't do until we forget what calm even feels like anymore. And we're so consumed by the image and the documentation that we really fall away from ourselves. And I think that for me, what I notice a lot with every client I work with is that usually the other partner, or I guess the other person in this, they care more about winning. And I'm using the word winning on purpose than the child, because there is no winning in parenting. You don't win the parenting trophy, but they are trying to pretend that they are winning and that you're also the one that's going to give them the trophy at the end. They don't care about what's actually happening, the nuance of the child's life. So how hard transitions are, if your child is refusing to get into the car, if they are hugging onto a tree and they don't want to leave, how they feel about school every day, or those conversations where the child is unloading their true feelings. They don't care about the details that make the child feel safe. They care about winning. They care about being right. They care about catching you in mistake. I call them gotcha moments, and twisting it into something that they can make you look bad. You spend hours coordinating, emailing, thinking, advocating, showing up, and they ignore all of it to accuse you of just being controlling and uncooperative. But they don't go to any appointments. They forget commitments. And somehow every time it's spun into evidence that you're the one making things hard. The child comes back sick. They didn't get medical care. The other parent didn't even realize they were sick. Now it's your fault for making a big deal and taking them to the doctor. Yet they test positive with an infection. They don't want to talk about your child's well-being. You notice in emails they're talking about you, not the child. They don't co-parent with you. They counter-parent and they compete with you because it's a strategy of who could be right. And I think that's the part that breaks us down the most, because you're not fighting even over logistics. You're fighting for your child's sense of stability, while the other parent is treating that stability or even the child's voice as like a game almost. But that is what coercive control is. It's a performance. And sometimes I tell myself, just ignore it. Don't respond. Don't react. Don't let it get to you. And for a moment, it works. There's quiet. I think things might have finally settled down. There could be a lag, and then it comes back. And it always comes back with a new accusation. Passive-aggressive digs or concern, quote unquote, that is really actually just meant to provoke. Because when you're dealing with someone whose power depends on your reaction, silence doesn't end the cycle. Even it can help create space, but silence doesn't end the cycle. When their control feels threatened, which silence might do, they find new ways to reassert it. So for example, these are all examples that have happened actually within the last 2 weeks with clients. You stop responding to unnecessary messages, so they loop in the school to make you look like you're uncooperative or you're not caring. They'll reach out to the child's therapist to set up a separate meeting, even if they've never spoken with the therapist before. You might ignore their latest email about something petty, and then they'll send follow-up and another follow-up and another follow-up, and then claim that you're not prioritizing the child's needs or getting back to them in a normal response time. You can stay calm in the parenting app, and then they'll add question marks or say things like, I'm just trying to be involved. And you might sit back and go, well, where were you for the last 3 months when you could have been involved? You try and take space emotionally. This is something I talk with clients about a lot because we don't need to be responding 24 hours a day. But when your child comes home repeating something they said, which is usually a distorted version of your words that make you defend yourself, they want that reaction from you. They're waiting for that email where you say, Hunter said XYZ. How could you tell Hunter that I made you sell the house? They want that. And they're using their kids to send those messages. And when you detach, sometimes they find a new channel, which could be a lawyer, emotion, the school, and then you're stuck having to respond again. And when I look at this, it looks like a pattern of forced engagement because you try and walk away, but then they create new reasons to pull it back in because what they want is you to be reactivated. They want your focus and your energy, your emotional response, and proof that they still have influence. As I'm saying this out loud, and the one particular client who is probably listening to this or will listen to this knows that the push to re-engage is actually usually cat photos from the counterparent, not engaging on anything real, but sending photos of cats. And this is why sometimes I think disengagement feels impossible because your body is feeling that threat when it comes in of the predictability and the unpredictability. And you learn that the peace just doesn't stay and it's not weakness, but your nervous system is trying to survive that. And that's the invisible part of post-separation abuse that nobody talks about. And that's the way your system never gets to actually stand down and regulate. And I will talk about that because I think regulating my nervous system is the one thing that I have control over. And it's something that I have really put thought and time into. In my time in family court, my time healing from abusive relationship, and my time just really being a single mom or a human being, I have learned over time that regulating my nervous system is probably the most important thing that I need to do. And it does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that it is perfect because I'm a human being. And I mean, to be frank, I was getting my cycle, well, I guess like the week before, and I definitely was feeling it and feeling just like more reactive. I even was feeling like, oh, well, I had the moment of realizing, okay, this is circumstantial right now, like this moment, but it doesn't mean that I don't feel that really, really out of balance. And so what's important, I think, about this is that being the protective parent, the safe parent, it means that you're the one who's probably absorbing all the chaos because you are the safe one. You're the one they can unload and react in front of. And it means that you are the regulator of the kid and you stay steady, you stay grounded, and you hold space for your child, and you have to hold space for yourself. And in and out of parenting, I realized that it is so important that I be regulated and that I prioritize that. I work out almost every single day of the week. And that is because it is such a huge help and support for my nervous system, especially in the morning. And when I don't, I definitely feel a difference. And it is super important. Sleep is super important for my particular body and my system. If I don't get sleep, I'm really not myself. I can function, I can make it through, but I have to prioritize it and I have to put time into blocking that out so I can have it. I have a coach, I have a therapist, I have an acupuncturist, I have a back injury, so I have a body work person that helps me make sure that like all things are going well. I have a cleaning person that comes once every 2 weeks. I do the things that I can do, but I know the things that I need to help support myself, my brain, my child, because when I am solid, or when I at least know what baseline is for myself, I don't even have to be solid, the better parent I am. And sometimes that has to do with really letting go of like the things that I can't do. Like I used to get really upset with myself when I couldn't get all the things done in the home, or I couldn't do all the organizing projects that I told myself I needed to do in one weekend. And now I know that that is not going to necessarily always make me a more regulated person, but sometimes making sure I have time to go for a walk with my kid does. And I think a lot of times when we are dealing with all the stuff, it feels like, when am I going to find time for those things for myself? But we have to find these tiny ways to make time. And I don't say this to be an asshole or a jerk by any sense, but if I can find ways to make the time, you can too, because sometimes that time is literally 2 minutes. Sometimes it's literally just me taking 3 deep breaths or 4 deep breaths before I go to bed at night. I go in my bedroom and put on the nightlight and like turn off the big light probably like an hour before, just so my room feels calmer when I go into it. There's these tiny incy wincy little things. And even though I have like these systems for myself, it doesn't mean that I'm doing them perfectly. Doesn't mean I show up and I'm not like stressed during a workout, but it means that I kind of keep trying to show up for myself. Because, and I'm sure you've heard this, that there's this like a theory, sometimes it drives me nuts, but it says a child only needs one safe parent. And while that's true, it's a really heavy truth, but I want to talk about what that means, because being a true safe parent doesn't mean that life is calm. It doesn't mean it's easy. It means that you are the one who absorbs the chaos of your child. And it means that when you're being provoked, it's like, I feel like sometimes it puts so much pressure of like, you need to stay steady while they play games. But what it also means is that you hold space, and you can hold space for your child's pain, their confusion. Being the safe parent means that you don't always have the luxury of reacting to the crazy shit that is said. My kid once said, all dad said was, fuck Jessica, for the last 5 minutes of the drive. And instead of getting reactive, I was like, oh, well, that sucks. Want to listen to music? Because I don't get the right to be mad in that moment, because if she's telling me that, she's dysregulated. And sometimes I think we want to match the energy of the person that's attacking us, but we have to stay grounded again and again, even when the systems are rewarding the other person, because a child only needs one safe parent really means that you are that anchor for them. And it means you're the model for what love and chaos feel like. I talked to a parent this week, and we're talking about a lot of issues with her kid, and she's getting all this support, and we've been working on that for a while. But one of the things that came up was, I said something like, you are holding all that dysregulation and the chaos, and it's like your body is absorbing it. You're like a sponge, but what you're teaching your child is that you can help them stay with every emotion. Because there's this quote I saw this weekend that said, you can only learn to regulate the emotions you're allowed to have. And I wasn't allowed to have any emotion as a child other than compliance. And that's not who I am. And my daughter can have a wide range of emotions. Not all of the actions are okay. Not the way she expresses it is okay. But the fact that they're there, it's okay. And there's always something underneath. And you are teaching your child, like through the steadiness and boundaries, that safety does exist, even when somebody else is trying to destroy it for them. And I think the most important thing for me is knowing that the relationship I'm building with my daughter is one that she can come to me with anything, and I will be there, and she knows that. And some days all you can do is be there, and then maybe like fall apart later at night and then have to get yourself together again. But I think it's one of the most important gifts that we can have. And maybe that's where that they only need one safe parent. What it's saying is they need one person that shows up for them the way that they need. Because safety isn't just not having conflicts. Safety is like in my brain. Safety is being able to be emotionally present for them. I know that this episode has been a bit more of a downer, but a bit more honest and a bit more real and a bit more, not focused on untangling these things, but more focused on talking about what happens. And I guess I just want to talk quickly about what you can do when you are feeling really stuck, because I think that this is a really difficult thing to navigate. And it also sometimes feels like it's just like, you're losing all these sweet moments with your kid. But aside from regulating yourself and finding the things that help you regulate you and that help you feel good and sane and calm, I gave you a list of things that are important to me. Some people, it is like their morning coffee, that they need that. I have one client that gets up at 5:30 every day. Her kid gets up at 6, and she has that half an hour for herself. It can look as whatever it needs to look like. And because showing up for you doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a face mask. It can actually be about another task on your list that actually makes you feel proud, or just even finding ways to work out your life and your schedule. You can set boundaries on when you look at the parenting app. You can take it off your phone so you're not getting notifications. You can step outside and go for a walk, or set up a promise to yourself that you're going to do that before you respond to an email. You can name out loud what's happening to yourself. This is abuse. I'm not crazy. You can let yourself cry. I think that even when we have to plan to cry or say, I will cry, I will release later, it's so much better than holding it in. You can say no without apologizing. You can reach out for support even when you feel like you should handle it on your own. You can carve out things to do with your kid that don't have to cost money. I would say my daughter and I, the only thing that we do really that costs any money is traveling, which I understand, can be expensive. Maybe one day I'll do a podcast on how I traveled for pretty much free all over the world. But and the answer is credit card reward points for legal bills. But aside from that, a lot of the things that she enjoys doing is just actually playing at home. It's playing with me. It's doing a craft. It's watching a show together. It's coloring. It's coming up with whatever game that she wants to play. It's being present with her. It's riding her bike, roller skating, going for walks. We have this thing with our dog where we do a hairy adventure that he guides the walk. And it's usually in all sorts of directions. And so it's the things that make us feel us. She likes to bake. Sometimes she'll go and she'll make me breakfast, which tends to be like string beans and all random things. But it's the thought, it's the sweetness, and it's that, and you can find those things that feel like, okay, those are the connection places. I think it's different for everybody, and I think everybody's battle is different, and I think we're all navigating different things with different kids. But I really want to say that if you need support, I'd be happy to support you, to talk to you. I work with people on the divorce strategy, on breaking free from emotional abuse, but I also work with people that are really trying to help their children in this system and how to begin to help themselves within that too. I care so much about this work. And if there's anything that I have or I know that would help you, it's why I do this podcast. It's because I want you to be able to help your kids and your family and your life so that you can feel proud of the person and the parent that you are. I really hope that this was helpful. As always, you can reach out to me at emotionalabusecoach.com. You can follow my Substack. In October, I just did the whole month on family court and parenting. So all of that content is there. A lot of it was also free. So the Substack link is in my show notes. And if you need any support, you can email me, Jessica@jessicaknightcoaching.com.